Hey, one more thing about the constraint, one more tip is like IK and FK, you have to turn constraints on and off because, of course, you don't need it all the time. It's just for a few frames. So let's get back to the animation I did. I made a few changes, but like I gave the rigs different colors. But just to show you guys how to turn on and off constraints you need. Okay, so I have here similar animation to the previous video, and I have a few more poses, and I will do and show the constraints all again. Okay, okay. So let me show you. I will select one controller just to see my keys here. So I have a few poses, and it's both guys and the green one or whatever color this is reaches and grabs the guy and starts lifting, and yeah, that's it. And he's gonna throw the other one. This is like an anticipation. Let me adjust the hands here. But anyway, so we're gonna work with constraints the same way we work it with IKFK, which means we're gonna turn constraint on and off, and this on and off animation has to happen from one frame to another. Okay, so let's do this. I will choose this pose to make the constraints because I think it's a clear pose and I can see better what I need. And I will follow the plan that I did for the previous video. In the previous video, I showed that I want this rig to lead the whole movement. Okay, so I want to select the hip of the rig, have FK to arms and legs so I can move everything as one piece. And I want, when I move this, I want the other rig hands to follow. But I don't want the hands to follow the hip. I want the hands to follow the closest controller. So in this case, this hand controller will follow the spine. And in this case, this wrist controller will follow this red knee. Okay? Did I say wrist here? It's wrist following spine. Okay. So, okay. So I will select um, this knee, the red knee. I will shift select the blue wrist, and then I go to constraint, parent, option box. I will keep maintain offset, translate, rotate, all in all, and then I will hit apply. And then I will select the spine, shift select. The spine is the parent, so shift select the child, which is the wrist, and apply. And it should work now. Okay, everything is working. Um, that after that, you will notice that, of course, hands are constrained to the rig, to this rig, but you also notice that this constraint is happening for all frames, for all animation. So if I go to the other poses, no matter what poses I have, this constraint is happening. Like, and it even messed up poses that I had before, right? So what do we do now? Look at this, really messed pose and constraint. Of course, the arms, as they can't stretch, they are just pointing to the controller. Like there's the wrist controller here. This arm, the wrist controller is here. So yeah, you can see the arm can't stretch, but the rotation is, everything is weird because this wrist wants to go where this controller is. Anyway, so what we do, I'm gonna go back to the frame where I the key pose where I did the constraint, and I will select one of the wrists. Let's start by the blue. So I select the wrist controller and notice that after I created a constraint, there is a new attribute here. Some people call this channel, some people call this even slider. But anyway, there's a new attribute here, a new property, a new thing that it's not keyed. It's set to 1 and it's there, just no animated, so it's 1 all the time. And what we can do is set a key here, and I can either uh, select this and press S in my keyboard, and let me undo this, or I can just press S without selecting here. So when I have the wrist controller selected and press S, everything is gonna key, right? Except for the green ones because they are constrained, which means their position and rotation depends on this hip. But anyway, let me select again the wrist. Um, and yeah, or I can just right click here and key selected. Okay. So anyway, right now the parent property is keyed to 1. I only have a key I selected here, so we can see here, I only have this property keyed in the frame I am. But I can go to a different frame, like 15, 10, or any other, and add keys here. And this is one, it's like FKK. This is one of those keys where you set 0 or 1 to say that I want it on and off. Okay, so okay, let's do this together. You see. So this is set to 1 here. In frame 15, the previous pose, I think this should be 1 as well, because I want the guy um, holding the leg already constrained. I'm gonna have to adjust this because it's kind of weird. But anyway, I want to constrain it um, already because I want him to grab the guy and then lift up, and I wanted the hand to follow the knee all the time. So you see here that it's not keyed as well because it's like this light. It's a I don't know, it's a light red or whatever. Anyway, so I'm gonna hit S here to key everything, and then I go to the previous frame, and I'm not adjusting the poses right now, okay? I'm just doing the constraints adjustment. Then I'm gonna adjust the poses. Cool. So, and I go to the previous pose, and yeah, I want to constraint here as well because he's already grabbing the leg. So I'm gonna hit S to keep this as 1. Cool. And then for the previous pose, I don't want this to be constrained because the guy is still, at least my original pose, uh, it is not supposed to be constrained. It's the guy is supposed to still like reaching in the way to grab the leg. Okay, so I'm gonna select the wrist controller. Oh, sorry, it is behind the knee, so it's here the wrist. And then I set this to 0 now. And when I had hit this as 0, as the wrist is not constrained in this frame, it will travel back to the original position. Cool. So it's still green here, meaning that there is a constraint, but at this time is not constrained. And we can say this because of this. It's the blend parent. It's set to 0. Cool. And then I can go to the previous one, and at this time would be set to 0 already. And why that? Let me bring in the graph editor and you guys will understand. So I started by frame 20 here, and then I changed frame 15, setting to 1 as well. And then I changed it to frame 10, and I confirmed 1 as well. And then I moved to frame 5, where I set this to 0. Okay? What happened is there was no animation in frame 0. There was no key here in frame one, I'm sorry. This is frame one. So um, let me go back to frame five and remove this key, and you understand. So this is the line graph editor for the blend parent. So I was keying the blend parent as one, and when I got to frame five, I set this to zero, right? So everything that was before is now zero. So I can go to frame one and just key selected or hit S or whatever I want. But anyway, so now when I have my blend parent property selected, you see it goes from 0 until frame 5, and then it changes to 10 in frame, then it changes to 1 in frame 10. Okay, so let's keep going. Um, let's say I want to this guy. Oh, let me adjust the poses first. So this is okay for 20. It's where I created the the constraint actually. In frame 15, it's eh, this is not good. So what I do here is I would adjust the poses as I want. I can't adjust this wrist because it's constrained to the leg, but I can adjust, well, the rest of the poses, the rest of the controllers, right? So yeah, this is really rough, but anyway, maybe I can adjust this lag. I did this really, really rough, so I'm not very um, worried about this, okay? But anyway, so because another thing that we could do in this case, in case you guys have a similar animation, I would do something, positioning the rig like this, and maybe rotating the spine or something like that, just so you guys know. But anyway, so, and let me see this here. Yeah, maybe I can bring this up a little bit. And that's it. Cool. So, oh, it's going crazy here. And why this is happening? The reason is between frame 5 and frame 10, we have the constraint being turned on. So constraint, just like IK and FK, usually makes thing go crazy if you don't make the change in just one frame. So let me go back to the animation graph editor, and I will select this wrist, and then blend parents, the attribute where I change on, turn on and off the constraint. So because of this, because it's not changing in just one frame, the hand go crazy. Okay, I'm gonna change this to stepped right now, so it doesn't go crazy. And I will show you how to do in the next step. Okay, let me just do the same for the other wrist. So frame 20, I will hit S to create a key here. Frame 15, I hit S because I want it to be 1. I want constraint. Frame 10, I want the constraint as well, so I hit S. Frame 5, I don't want the constraint anymore because this is crazy. So I'll change this to 0. Okay, and it goes back to the original pose. And then I go to frame 1, and I want it at 0. I just hit S. It's already 0. Okay, so I'm kind of back to my previous animation. Oh, and let me fix this, the craziness of this hand as well. So I have the wrist selected. I select the keys and change it to stepped. Okay, so going back, everything is kind of back to normal. And I want this guy to throw the green guy to throw the purple guy. So I made like an anticipation pose. The hands um, went down because they are still constrained, but I do a pose throwing this guy. I'm gonna cut this so you don't have to watch me doing the pose and we save some time, okay? Okay, so I did this pose in frame 30. So I have this in 25 and this in 30. But my hands, I didn't touch the wrist controllers. They are still attached to the body. I made a pose to the purple rig, the purple body, and the let me fix this. Sorry, but the wrists are just there, just following the magenta body. Okay, so what do I want to do now? So I will select the wrist controller. I'll start with the blue one. So it's still constrained to the leg, to the knee, to this knee controller. So I selected, you see there is no key for here. I can like hit S to create a key here, but I don't want it constrained anymore. So I'm gonna go to blend parent and I'm gonna hit this 0. And what's gonna happen now? So the wrist controller in this case is still there in the position it was. So I just have to, it's not constrained anymore. So I just have to move to the position I want. Okay? Sometimes, depending on the situation, if you had like a pose before, when you hit 0, 0 in the parent, it goes back to the original pose, right? So, for example, let's say I'm going to use the red wrist for this. I'm going to hit 0 here. I'm going to move, let's say this was a pose I had before. Okay, so imagine that I was doing the animation with the constraints. Then I go to this pose, the red wrist is still constrained, and then I go to this pose, and I'm doing the constraints, and the red wrist is still constrained. So when I hit 0 here, if I had a previous pose that I did before doing the constraints, the hand will go back to that pose. Okay? Anyway, you can either have a pose before, and when you turn off the constraint, it goes back to this pose, or you can do the constraints together with the blocking. And when you turn off the constraint, you just do the pose you want. Cool? Hands are going crazy here because they are not stepped. And I will show you how to do the next phase in case you guys already started doing the polishing. Okay, so let me change the blend parents. I selected both wrists. I selected blend parent option and I changed it here to the step. Okay, so now hands are not going crazy between key poses, right? And what I'm going to do now is go the next step to the polishing, right? So my polish is going to go weird when I turn the controllers to auto for two reasons. First, because it's a really, really rough animation. I didn't care about the poses actually. I just want to show you guys how this works. But second, because of the constraints, and that's what I want to show you, how to deal with it turning on and off the constraints. It's exactly the same as you did for FKIK, but let me show you guys. So I selected all the controllers. I'm selecting all the keys, and I'm gonna change it then to auto. I hope all the controllers were selected, but some of them may still be stepped. But anyway, so what happened now is I have this happening, and you see how, look at the blue hand. It goes crazy between frame 5, see, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's going crazy, and I don't want this to happen. This is because the constraint is not stepped anymore. I changed it to auto as well. So what I'm going to do is um, frame 10, I will call it as the contact pose, which means the first pose where my green rig is touching the magenta one, okay? So in frame 10, I want the blend parents to be 1. And in frame 9, I want it to be 0. You see that is not a 0, it's like a whatever number. So I'm gonna hit S to create a key for this wrist. And then I'm gonna change this to 0. Cool. So right now, the constraint is cleared. When I go from frame 5 to frame 9, the hands is still going crazy. And this is where it goes. Two options here. The first one that I would do is, I don't remember if you guys use it this, if I told you guys in class, but I would start by this option here. Selecting the wrist first, then I will go to curves and I will run this Euler filter. Sometimes it fixes whatever is happening to the hand. So let's see, frame 5, there you go, frame 9. Cool. Well, let's say it didn't fix, because sometimes this happens. So I will undo. So, okay, Euler filter was not done anymore. So what I would do in this case is I would copy the pose from frame 5. I would go to frame 9 and paste. Why is not going? Let me try again. Select the wrist, copy. Frame 9, paste. Okay, now it worked. So I would just do the movement myself from frame 5 until frame 9. Okay, so I have the hand here in frame 9. I would just move and I will make the rotation the way I want. And of course, this has to match frame 10, right? Because it's the frame right after. It has to match somehow. Cool. I'm not going too crazy in this because they are just rough poses. Um, this you guys will also do in the polishing. But anyway, I'm smoothing out this move. Okay. And I will do the same for the red wrist. So the red wrist is animated and constrained, and the contact pose is happening in frame 10. Let me just double check, bring in the graph editor. Yeah, so in frame 10, it's set to 1, in frame 5, it's set to 0, but we have this curve, and we can't have it. We have to make the change in just one frame, right? But let's say I want to do this constraint on a different frame. Let's say I want in frame 9, the hand already constrained. So what I can do here is I go to frame 9 and I can either hit S or just select here and hit S or key. And I want this 2 in 1. I want the constraint working here, right? And then I go to frame 8 and I have to change this to 0. So the constraint in the blue wrist is happening in frame 10. If I select the blend parent, it's changing from frame 9 to frame 10. When it changes from one frame to another, from frame 9 to frame 10, we can both leave as auto or we can set as a step. It's up to you, okay? There's no big changes. But anyway, for the red wrist, we have the change happening in frame 8 to 9. And this is not a problem. I can make the change whenever in any frame I want. So in frame 9 is set to 1, in frame 8 is set to 0, and I can do this. Cool. So it becomes a 0, suddenly change to 1, where my constraint starts, and everything is done. Let me see if this hand is going crazy, because I have this pose in frame 5, then 6, 7, 8, 9. No, it doesn't look like it's going too crazy. Although I want to make some adjustments, right? So found it, no problem. You see everything is really rough and not adjusted. But anyway, I just want to show you guys that, yeah, this is how it works. Cool. And to turn off the constraint is the same thing. So we have this animation here, grabbing, constraint, and everything is working. And I want to turn off the constraint. By now, the turning off is kind of crazy. Let's see what happened to the hands. Frame 25, the anticipation, and when he throws, the hands go a bit crazy. So let me see what is the best frame I want to turn off. I will start by the red wrist this time. So frame 25, frame 26, frame 27 is probably the last one. Yeah, this is already crazy. So I go to frame 27, that I want to be the last one, and I will change this to 1. And let me show you just one thing. This is my graph editor with the blend parent attribute selected. When I hit 1 here in frame 27, automatically, of course, because of the nature of the curve, frame 26 will be 1 as well, right? Because it's between 26, 25, and 27, and both are set as 1. So I have frame 27 as 1, and then I want to turn off in frame 28 with a change to 0. So from 28 on, everything is 0, back to 0. And we're going to have our curve, our blend parent curve, something like this. In my case, I can change this to stepped as well. And there it is. Cool. So let's see what happens in the animation itself. So in 27, the wrist is still constrained, and 28 is not constrained anymore, and it's going a bit crazy. One thing that I want to do this time is, because of the rotation is so kind of different, right? So I want to do the copy and paste pose. So I'm going to go to frame 30. I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to go to frame 28, and I'm going to paste. So I have the same pose, right, for both frames. But here, I want something a bit different. Well, let me move this hand out before so you guys can see. So I move my hand here, and I want to have something. Let me see, 27. Yeah, I want to have something more like this. Frame 7, frame 27, I want my fingers to go back to 0, just like it was before. Yeah, cool. So let's see how it goes. 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30. Yeah, kind of like this. Cool. And then I would do the same for the blue wrist. Cool. Nice case. So yeah, when you start uh, polishing and you're using constraints, just do the same um, as you did in FK IK. First, you make the change work in just one frame. So it has to be constrained in one frame, set as one, and not constrained in the frame before. So set as 0. And you have to do the same when you're turning off. So it has to be constrained and as like set as 1 in one frame, and when it's not constrained in the next frame, you set to 0. And you have to adjust the poses after that. Cool. It's okay if you do the whole blocking and then you do the constraints after. And it's also cool if you do the blocking and the constraints at the same time. Both ways work. It's not a problem. Just have in mind that when you when you choose a frame to do the constraint, there will be a distance between the controllers. In my case, it would be the spine controller and the hand controller for one hand, and the knee controller and the other hand controller. So this distance, we call it offset. And this offset, you choose one frame to do the constraints, and the same offset of this frame will be applied to all other frames that the constraint exists. Okay, so that's not a big problem, but just have in mind that. Cool. So yeah, that's it. In case you have any questions, just send me an email. Thank you guys, and see you.